My name's Eric, and today we are going to talk about Content Hub's external components, which allows you to add advanced customization to your Content Hub instance. And we're going to go over that in this tutorial. I'm going to show you the solutioning of these external components. I'm going to show you how to test from your local dev server, as well as uploading into a portal asset to reference inside the component itself. And then I'm also going to cover a couple documentation examples. Now, before we start the video, you need to have a good understanding of JavaScript and React. And if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. Now with that, let's get started. If you haven't done already, open up Visual Code. We're going to do an npm create Vite at latest. So we're creating a Vite project. You can use Webpack and anything else, but for this example, we're going to just use Vite. So we're going to give our project name external component for Content Hub. We'll just leave the package name. And we're going to use React for our external components. And then we're going to pick TypeScript as our variant. Go ahead and hit return and change directory to the root directory of your install, and then do an npm install. Now that we have everything completed, you will see that you'll have the default files that's built automatically, including the index.html. We also have our TypeScript config also set and pre-configured. And then you also could see your Vite config. We're going to come back here and we're going to look at the dev script. So we're going to do an npm run dev to see and make sure our installation worked. And as you can see here, if you get the screen, then you successfully installed the project. So one of the things we have to do is we have to configure this thing to do SSL. So we're going to use plugin basic SSL. You can use a certificate, but this is kind of a fast way to get into configuring your solution for Content Hub. So we're going to import basic SSL from Vite.js plugin-basic-SSL, and make sure you call it in the plugins array in your Vite config. All right, so don't forget to save it. Next thing we need to do is we need to go to our package.json. We have to configure our run script. So make sure that this is configured for hosting and for SSL, and make sure CORS is also enabled. This allows you to run your script inside Content Hub. So do an npm run dev inside Visual Studio Terminal and navigate to localhost. And if everything is done correctly, it will take you to this warning, which is fine. And at least you know you're running SSL. And again, you can always use a certificate if you're worried about security. So we're going to go ahead and shut down terminal. And we're going to clean out some of these assets we don't need. So I would delete everything in this folder except your Vite configs, environment variables. And let's get rid of this public folder. And don't forget, we're going to delete this too. We want to get this thing down bare bones. So first things first, we're going to build our Hello World component. So let's make a components folder. And then we'll build another folder called Hello World. And then we'll create a index.tsx file. And let's go ahead and let's write out a basic Hello World file. So export default function, create external root. And we're going to pass in a type HTML element. And then here, this is where we'll return our view. So render props any type. And then in the inner HTML, we're going to go ahead and write hello world. And don't forget to unmount it. And we'll do the same thing. We'll just make this inner HTML empty. Now we have to modify our config. So first we have to put in the build property, and we have to define the library of how we're going to build out our components. So we'll pass in our library, lib, right? This needs to be in JavaScript module format. So we're going to do a format ES. Yep. We're going to select that. And then after that, we are going to do our file name. Now I'm going to use a node environmental variable called component in the config. So we're going to type it out. It's going to be process.env. And I want to show you something. So right now it's not being recognized. You'll see here in a second. It's not being recognized by Vite. So you have to install the @types/node in order to get the node environmental variables to come over to Vite. And once you do that, you'll see it come through. _npm_config_component, which is going to be the variable we're going to pass in our build. And then we have the entry point of what we're building. So this is how we're building it. So we're going to the components folder, and the name of our component we're passing in, and we're going to grab a index.tsx file, and every one of our components are going to be built this way. So we got that set up. Let's go ahead and let's build hello world, right? So we're going to run the npm run build command, which will build it in TypeScript, and Vite will build it for us. So we'll come down here to terminal and do an npm run build, and then pass in the component we want through those environmental variables we talked about earlier, and this will be hello world. And you'll see the distribution folder has been built with our bundle. There it is. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to run this so we can have it accessible for Content Hub. So we're going to run our hosted solution. Go to localhost. Now make sure you navigate to the distribution folder and where your bundle is. Everything's working, which is good. So we're going to copy that. Now let's go to our Content Hub instance. As you hear, we're here in our instance. And I think for this, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the assets. I want to do this component for the asset detail. So let's go into the asset details, and I'll probably place it right here, right at the bottom on the right hand side. So let's go into management screen where our dashboard is in the back. And then we're going to go to pages. Now we're going to go to asset details. Now remember, if you do anything that asset details, there's an asset details video. Make sure to update that as well. And let's go ahead and build our external component. So we're going to search for external, right? And then we're going to pick our external component. We're going to title it Hello World and make sure it's visible. We're going to add it. Okay, and it's built. So this is the basic structure. You have here your JS bundled or from asset. Here's your config where you pass in variables. But for now, we're going to pass in a URL. So we're going to pass in this URL. We copy it. And we're going to paste it. Then don't forget to save. Go ahead to your asset details page, refresh. And you'll see right there, right at the bottom, there's our component. So let's see this thing internally inside Content Hub, right? So we have to go to Portal Assets. We have to upload that JS file here, that bundle. So we'll upload files from device. Hello world, yep. All right, and then we're doing one file. Make sure that you go to your background processing. So we're going to check background processing, wait for it complete. Because if you reference it and it's not complete, it won't show up. It won't work properly, you'll get an error. So just double check, we'll refresh the page, make sure renditioning and processing is done, and there it is, hello world.js, and there's a document icon. So let's go ahead and reference that portal asset. And this is the only place you could get it. You can't put this bundle anywhere else. So let's go to hello world.js, select that, save. Make sure you save the component as well. There you go. So now we're going to go ahead and refresh, and it should be right there. And there you go. That's an external component, hello world. Okay, we're going to go over subscribing events. Now, this is something you could pull directly from the documentation. So we're going to make a subscribing events component folder. And in there, we're going to create a new index.tsx file. And after I've completed this, I'm going to paste in that code and we'll walk through it. So what we have here is you see the options context, which is passing in the options from your context object that creates your rendering. And then you have your onEntity saved constant, which is what is being built in your add event listener. And there you'll get your entity ID and entity definition passed in this alert message. And then in here, you see the create external root passes in your rendering. I'm going to go ahead and do a console log on the context that's being passed in the rendering so we can see what comes with it and what you can access. And then below we have your options entity ID and with the prop from config and the styling passed in from themes. So let's go ahead and run an npm run build. As you see, I'm passing in the component subscribing events. We're going to build it. And then we're going to do an npm run dev, and we're going to navigate to that distribution folder to subscribing events.js, and we're going to copy it, that URL. And then we're going to create an external component here on the asset details page. Remember for your videos to duplicate it. Make sure we type in the name, subscribing events. And then we are going to make sure it's visible. All right, we're going to go inside our external component. From path, we're going to put in our server URL, save it, and let's go back to our asset details page. We refreshed, and I'm going to show you the add event listener here real quick. When we save the new title, you can see now on that save event, the ID and the entity definition are shown with the alert. So there's your subscribing event. And if we scroll at the bottom below the hello world, we can see the entity ID along with the config, which we haven't done yet, and then the theming that's passed in. And I'm going to show you a little bit more where this comes from, which is here in this object. So we have a lot to pick from. We have the API, the client, the config, the entity, and we also have here access to search methods and a bunch of helpful things to create more functionality and advanced configuration. So if we want to call the client for the SDK, you can. Here in the entity, we could call the properties or relations that you need to display. And these are the options that we brought into the view before in that context. And then here's the themes where you could bring in some of the CSS into your view. So we're going to look at this config view. We're going to bring in prop from config, which is the key value here in our configuration. So we're going to go to text. We'll go ahead and create the key. prop from config. And this, we'll do, this is, oops, this is my value. And then we're going to go ahead and save the component. And if you refresh, you're going to see that new value come through the component. And there it is. So now we're going to come back here, do a little cleanup. We'll get rid of this console.log. We're going to import this into portal.assets and then reference it from internally inside Content Hub like we did with Hello World. So we're going to run the build. So that's updated. We're going to go ahead and upload that subscribing events.js. All right. Make sure it's processed and it's available or you won't see it. And then we're going to pull it from assets. So we're going to find that portal asset we just made. Now I'm going to tell you an error that's going to happen when we save this and we refresh the page. So the error that is caused is because the react.dom.render does not like that process environmental variable we did in the Vite config. So you have to define it in scope. So it's going to be process.env and then pass type process.env. So we're going to rebuild again and we're going to re-upload it, which we already did. And then we're going to refresh the page after we've relinked it back to the external component. And there it is. And that is subscribing events. Hey everyone, we're going to start working on search events. So let's create a new folder and we're going to call it search filter. And let's go ahead and create that index.tsx file. And remember, this is all being pulled from the documentation example for the search filter. There's a link below in the description if you need reference to that. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that over. We're going to save that. As you can see, we have our code, but we still need the add search filters component. So I'm going to go ahead and create that add search filters.tsx file. And then we're going to copy in that code from that page and paste it. And don't forget to save. As you can kind of already see, we have errors for the import for the Content Hub web client. So let's go ahead and install that. So do an npm config and make sure you config to registry for the SDK and then do an npm install of that package. So it's at Sitecore se-content hub-web client-SDK, and then we're going to install it. And then those errors are now reserved. So let's go back to our Content Hub instance. Let's go to the search page. So what we're going to do is build a component that will allow us to have a form to add a filter to brand and fruitful. So it'll give us this view and also add a search box to search this whole entire component as well. So let's find a couple things we need. We need the entity definition ID to get the specific taxonomy that you want to add a filter on. So we're going to go here in taxonomy. We're going to go to brand, and in mbrand, you're going to find your entity you want to search on, which is through fruitful, right? So as you can see here, this is where you're going to get your entity definition ID from. So what we have here in this index.tsx file is we have the context defined in interface of what we need. So we need to pass in a search identifier string, which will connect us to the search component we want. And then we need the entity ID. And then we want to pass in all the search properties from the search API. And then in our create external root function, we want to pass in that context of from our client. So context.api.search. And then we're going to create the add search filter, which will have the view we want for the search page. So let's go to the add search filters.tsx page. And so in this component, we're going to build a filter button that will call the add search filter. And then next to it will be a remove button, which will remove that filter and reset it. And then below that, we're going to add a full text filter, which will include an input text box that will allow us to put our text into our search. And then we will also have a button that will clear that text, will update and also clear it as well. So let's go to the add search filter. Here in the component, we're going to bring in the taxonomy ID. Like I told you before, we're going to put in that 140 entity ID for the entity definition. And then your entity, the fruitful ID, you're going to pass that into the values. And then after that, the search filter will be applied. And then your set full text filter, as you can see here, it is going to go ahead and bring in whatever input, and it's going to, on finish, it's going to complete that search with all your predefined search filters, any text, any IDs to preserve the current state. And then we're going to add it to the event listener for search finished. And then we're going to remove it. So let's go to our Content Hub instance, or before we do that, let's go ahead and let's build our package. So we're going to run build, and then we're going to do the search filter. Now I've built this, and I'm going to go ahead and import it into the portal.js and have that all completed. So now let's go over to Content Hub, and we're going to go to the assets page. We're going to create a new external component. And then in the external component, we're going to put in the search filter and make sure that's visible. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get that asset already uploaded. So we're looking for search filter.js, right? Save it. And then we're going to go to the config. So that config has a prop value of search identifier. And then we're going to make sure with the key, we're going to have a value. Let's save this and now go to the search component. And this is how we hook up the external component to the search component. We have to go here on the assets page. So let's go ahead in the top URL, we're going to put in API/entities/ID of the component. So it's going to look like this. So it's 9815, which is the common ID out of the box. And then we're going to pull the identifier property. And this is how we pass in the identifier to our add filters component. So it knows which search component it can update. Save it. Now we're going to run it. And as you can see at the bottom, we have an add search filter button. So when we click it, it's going to go ahead and filter and print out what we filtered on. There's is fruitful like we did before. And also we have the remove brand button. And you can see the entity ID of the definition and everything. Let's go ahead and remove it. So now it's clear, and then we could test out our search input. Now you could go ahead and update the full text filter. And there you go. And this is the search external component that we've just created. That concludes our video. Let me know in the comments of any topics you wish to see discussed on this channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Thank you for watching.